be also showing some of that today with some explanation, but on the day you won't have resources to fall back on other than we will be allowing you to use the internet to research stuff, okay? So in the double next week, you need to make certain you have your device with you to be able to do the task. So the first part looks like this, the in-class task. You have 40 minutes to complete part A. You're only allowed to use your calculator, pen or pencil. And this is a practice task which you can do at any time between now and Thursday. Then you'll be given a similar task in the first part of the double to complete in class without notes and without reference to books or the internet. And the second task, you're allowed to use any resource that you like, okay? It is already up on the website, so you can download it at any time, and the formatting will be fixed up so it looks nicer. All right, let's begin from here. If you haven't already worked it out, I like shares. As an investment strategy, I think they're a good, easy tool to use to increase your personal wealth and help you achieve some goals. But it can be confusing trying to decide which company you should invest in. So I'm going to go through the activity you'll be doing in the first half of the double. It's also the activity, the practice activity that is already up on the classroom. But I'm not going to use those figures, I'm going to use other figures, all right? The bull, by the way, is a very famous statue on Wall Street. I know you've heard some of this before, but it doesn't help to repeat it every so often. I'll click it later. In terms of buying shares, you cannot buy shares yourself. You have to go through what they call a stockbroker. So you can't ring up the stock exchange and say, I want to buy so many shares. You ring up somebody who is licensed to buy shares. They place the order for you. They charge a fee both for buying and selling any shares that you want. And they'll do it either as a flat fee or a percentage of how much you spend or a combination of both. If you want to buy shares online, you can do that for as little as $5 a trade and up to around $20 or $30 a trade with some online sites. If you go through what they call a full service broker, in other words, you want to talk to a person and place the order with a person, they will charge you any number of fees. Oftentimes it'll be a percentage of what you spend, and the more you spend, the less they charge you, because the more you spend, the more money they make. Alright, so an example, and the practice paper that you have, which you are encouraged to do before next Thursday, doesn't use these numbers exactly, but if you look at the numbers that I use, the numbers on the practice test, practice paper, just follow the numbers. That's one thing people don't understand about maths. One of the things that makes maths easy is once you have an example of how to do something, you can use the same example in another situation if you just follow where the numbers come from and what you do with them, all right? The practice paper, I think, uses $80,000. I'm just using $20,000. So you have two brokers, one that will cost you a flat $150. No matter how much you spend, it's $150. The other broker is going to charge you $50 plus 1.5% of whatever you spend. And this brings in your work with percentages, so you need to be comfortable with percentages. So there's the cost for broker A. Easy. Mind you, if you're going to spend the $20,000 by buying two lots of shares, $10,000 each, he'll charge you $150 for each. If you buy 5 different companies, $4,000 each, you'll charge $150 for each purchase. So it's not one purchase in total, it's for each individual purchase. The second broker is $50 flat plus 1.5%, which as a percentage is over 100, and is 1.5% of multiplication, 20,000. Working that out, this by the way is already up on the website, so you can download it anytime you like. So the cost to use a second broker is $350. The difference between the two, most likely the first broker won't give you any advice. The second broker, because he's charging you more, will probably give you advice and guide you through the process. But we're interested in saving some money, so we're not going to use a second broker. We'll use the first broker. Thing to remember, brokerage is always charged. Always. Whether you're buying or selling, they charge you. Whether you're buying one company, 2 companies, 3 companies, they'll charge you per company. So it's a cost that you have to consider. So if you're only going to spend $20,000 and no more, then you have to account for the fact that they're going to charge you $150 brokerage, which means you can't spend $20,000. You can only spend $19,850. Alright, now I just chose BHP. No particular reason. It's the largest mining company in the world. It is Australian. It started in Broken Hill, which is what the BH stands for. I picked a price at random, $32 a share, and we're going to assume that we're buying them. By the way, when you're doing your research, every company in Australia, not America, but in Australia, has a 3-letter code. And you need to know what that code is to be able to look up information. Now you can Google it, that's not a problem. You can go to places to get it, that's not a problem. Some companies, the code is obvious. For BHP Billiton, it's BHP. For Woolworths, it's WOW. For Northern Star Mining, it's NST. But some of them just don't make any sense. MGX is Mount Gibson Mining. Where the X comes from, no idea. So it's not always logical what the code is, but you do need the code to work your way around it. So we've got $19,850 to spend. Each share is going to cost us $32. So we're going to divide $19,850 by 32, and it comes up with 620.3125. Surprisingly, you can't buy a fraction of a share. You either buy one whole share or not. So we can't buy 0.3125 a share, so we end up buying 620 shares. The next step is just to check your arithmetic. You reconcile, just make sure you account for all the money. So how much did the shares cost us? $19,840. The brokerage was $150. So if I add the two numbers together, it gives me $19,990, which means I still have $10 left. But if I add up all that I've spent plus the $10, I've got $20,000, so we're good as far as the money goes. It is important that I think you have to understand what being a shareholder is. You're going to have, over the course of your working life, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars invested. Because of what we have, which is called the superannuation guarantee, this is the money that you will be saving over the course of your working life. So when you retire at 67 or whenever it is, you've got money to live on. The main place that this money is invested is shares. There are a limited number of places you can put a lot of money. And shares is the most versatile place to put the money. So understand what shares are. The reason why it's a share is because you are a share owner. When you buy 620 shares of BHP, you own a certain percentage of BHP. If you bought all the shares of BHP, you would be the sole owner, and you'll be entitled to everything. If you bought 51% of all the shares that BHP has, you wouldn't be the sole owner, but you'd have the control of it because you have the majority vote. So a shareholder is an owner with all the rights of an owner, and one of those rights is you're entitled to a share of the profits. And we calculate the profits by looking at how much the company has earned, take away whatever the company needs for future development, and then divide it by the number of shares. So the profit is always expressed as a dollar amount, or more specifically, a cent amount per share. So CPS is a common notation. Because you're dividing it, it's called a dividend, and quoted per share. Because how much you get depends on how many shares that you own. So if BHP would have paid $1 per share as your share of the profit, if you own 1 share, you get $1. If you own 1,000 shares, you get $1,000. So the shares are, the dividend is distributed on a per share basis, and you can work out how much you owe. Different place you can go to get some information. I googled BHP Billiton, and one of the first sites that came up was Intelligent Investor. And if you look down here, you see it's got the dates and the amount of the dividends. If you look down the left-hand menu, you have other pieces of information you can draw on, such as an overview, any announcements that they've made, and financial data that we might need for something further on. So the information is easy enough to get. Right. I googled BHP dividend history, and it took me to Intelligent Investor website, and what I saw was in 2017, the total dividend was 123.54 cents. It's almost always quoted as cents. So obviously it's $1.24 when you round it off, but the 0.54, if you own 1,000 shares, becomes dollar amounts. So they still take it to all those decimal places. And in 2016, the total dividend was 71.70 cents. I say total because they they always pay dividend in 2 lots. One in March and one in September. They divide it into halves, time frame, into half years. So you just simply add the 2 together to give you how much you've received in 1 year. So over the 2 years then, you've got 195.24 cents, which you can round off if you like to $1.95 over the 2 years. And I stress again, the 0.24 cents doesn't mean much if you only own 1 or 2 shares, but if you own 1,000 or 2,000 shares, then they become dollar amounts and they become worthwhile. And when you consider a lot of these larger companies will own millions of shares, that 0.24 ends up being tens of thousands of dollars difference. So our 620 shares, because remember we couldn't buy a part of a share, over the 2 years earned us $1,210.49, approximately. We'd like to round off to the nearest cent. That's money in your pocket. If you decide to sell BHP shares, and I go back to why I like shares, you can invest in lots of different things. One of the most popular places to invest in Australia is housing. The problem with housing, apart from the fact it takes a lot of money to buy a house, that if you need money straight away and you need to sell the house to get that money, even if you have somebody who's ready to buy it today, it's still going to take you between 6 and 12 weeks for the money to be available to you. Shares, on the other hand, if I want money to pay for car registration, which has just come in, I can sell portion of my shares, and only enough that I need to pay for the bill, and in 5 days' time, 3 days' time, the money's in my account. And I don't have to go through a whole rigmarole of all the solicitor's paperwork that's required to sell a house. So in that sense, shares are very easy to convert to cash. So when you see a selling opportunity, the shares have gone up in value, and you want to take the money, fine, just sell it. Simple as that. The difference between what you paid for them and what you sell them for is a profit. And that's what we're in shares for. So, when we bought the shares, it cost us $19,990, including the brokerage. That's our cost. When we sell them, our gross profit is $35 a share. We've got 620 shares, which is fine. That's $21,700. But, and the difference between gross and net, gross is what I get in total, net is what I receive in the hand. I still have to pay brokerage. So I'm going to pay $50 plus 1.5%, $21,700. So it's going to cost me $375.50 to sell them. So it cost me $350 to buy them, $375 to sell them. So it's costing a lot of money to buy and sell shares. But it means that the net sale, how much money ends up in my account, looks more like $21,324. So when I buy the shares, I add the cost of brokerage because it's an expense. When I sell the shares, I take the cost of brokerage away from what I get because I have to pay that to somebody else. So my total profit over 2 years is what I end up getting in the bank, my net, minus the total cost of buying, plus the dividend. I still receive $1,200 dividend, so the arithmetic looks like that. And don't forget, you still have $10 cash. So over the 2 years, my $20,000 has returned for me in profit $2,554.99, which is not bad over 2 years. But how good or bad is it? And this is where percentages come handy. A percentage is how you compare two numbers in a way that you can then compare them to other numbers. The percentage profit is how much profit I received divided by what it cost me to get that profit. So I received $2,544.99. It cost me $19,990. Multiplying it by 100 turns it into a percentage. That turns that fraction into a percentage, which is 12.7%, but that's over 2 years. So over 1 year, as an annual percentage, it works out 6.4%. Does anyone know how much the bank will give you for $20,000 over 2 years? Any ideas? I looked it up. The best you can get is about 2.6%. So over the course of the 2 years, you've got between 2 and 3 times more by having the money in shares than if you had the money in the bank. Which means, of course, that if you're really serious and you've got some money, you oftentimes will make more money by buying shares in the bank rather than putting the money in the bank. I went to Intelligent Investor, just looked up some numbers. I needed the earnings figures, I needed the dividends, and book value I don't need, but I'll explain to you what that is. So firstly, earnings. Because a company earns a lot of money, doesn't mean you get it all as an owner. Every company needs money for future progress. So they have to hire more people, they have to buy new equipment, they have to replace equipment, they want to expand, they need money for that. So the earnings is what they actually make, if you like, a gross profit. The dividend will come from how much of that money they decide to share with investors. That's why your earnings is $1.73 in 2017, $1.06 in dividends. So they kept, what, 60 something cents for future growth. The book value is interesting. The book value is simply if you sold BHP equipment, if you sold everything BHP owned, you'd get $14 a share. But you paid $32 a share for it. So that difference between the book value and what you're paying is what the people think the company is worth as a business, as opposed to just a whole pile of machinery. So if you bought BHP in total and you sold it all, you wouldn't make your money back. That's what it's saying. There's also a site called InvestSmart. This is before we even go to the ASX. We can get similar sorts of information. EPS, which is earnings per share. EPS change, how much above or below it was from last year. PE ratio, which is one of the basic ratios that we need. DPS, dividend per share, how much you get as an owner, and the yield is the percentage that you receive being the owner. So in this case, you got 3.77% for having shares in BHP, as opposed to putting the money in the bank, which would give you 2.6% if you're lucky. All right. One thing about investing in shares is there's lots of what we call ratios. They like to compare numbers in a company and compare the numbers from one company to another to get a feel for how good the company is. And one of the main ones is this PE ratio. P stands for price, E stands for earnings. In other words, compare how much it costs you to buy the share with how much the company actually earns. In essence, what the PE ratio tells you is how many years it would take you to make back the money you spent. So if the PE ratio ends up being 10, it means it will take you 10 years to earn back the cost of the share. If you're interested, something like Google or Apple, which are not Australian companies, they're American companies, they have PE ratios in the hundreds. So Google, for example, would take you a couple of hundred years before you'd ever make your money back on the shares. It's a guide, it's not perfect. In BHP, the price of one share was $32. They had earnings of $1.76. The PE ratio is 18 to the nearest whole number. Note that it's not a percentage, it's not dollars and cents, it's just a number. And you can compare that number with other companies, and if the number is higher than other companies, it means it's more expensive to buy this company. Not in dollar terms, in time. How much you have to wait before you get your money back. So what we want when we're looking for companies to invest in is a price to earnings ratio that's low, because it means you'll get your money back faster. The dividend yield is a percentage. That's why you're multiplying by 100. It compares how much you receive as a dividend compared to the price per share. Everything is done per share. And it ends up being a percentage. For BHP, it ended up being 3.875%. For the bank, it would be 2.6% if you left it in there for a full year. All right, this is the example on the practice paper. The company is called Wu Tang, and we have some numbers there. and we want to calculate some ratios. So we want to work out how much per share the company has earned. Not the dividend, not the profits that are going to come back to me as an owner, but how much the company's made above and beyond the cost of running the company. This 298, I think I've got right number of zeros. 298 million comes from here because that's the profit. The let me get this right, 21,854,000, and I'm missing a zero. Okay, so I'll rectify that. There should be another zero on the bottom, but the number is correct. It's 1.36. So what it means is for every share that this company has, they've made $1.36. That's what it means. It's net profit. So my PE ratio, which is the price of the share compared to the earnings, is the price of the share which we get from up the top, 23.51, divided by the earnings per share, which was $1.36, and it comes to 17.3. Now BHP had a price to earnings ratio of 18, so these two companies are roughly the same value. The yield is the dividend, how much did they pay to the owners of the company compared to the share price, and they paid down here, if you look down the bottom, 35 cents. The share price was 23.51. By multiplying it by 100, I change it to a percentage, it comes up to 1.49%. In essence, what it means is you probably would have been better off putting the money in the bank at 2.6%. But there are lots of reasons why we invest in shares, not just the interest rate. Okay, that should give you enough to look at part A of the practice paper. It is up on the website. Download it, start working through it. I'll give you time in class if you like to practice it, that's fine. I've got no issues with that. But next Thursday, you'll have a similar activity, but you won't know what the numbers are. So you need to come either through rote memory, remember how to do these things, or by understanding them, know where to find the numbers. All right. I pulled this off the internet. This is the richest people in the world in 2017. Bill Gates, if you don't, anyone not know who Bill Gates is? Okay. Then Warren Buffett is somebody that a lot of people have not heard of. He is typically always in the top 3 or 5 richest people in the world. He is the most successful share investor in the world, and he's worth $75.6 billion. That's billion with a B. Just a little bit of background on the man. This is the house that he bought in 1958 in America, and it's the only house he's ever owned. He bought it for $31,500. Somebody asked him, why do you only own one house? Well, what can you do with 10 houses around the world? He owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway. I looked up the price this morning. It's now worth $294,700 per share, one share in the company. Remember, you can't buy a part share. You can only buy a whole share. And that's US dollars. So I use a converter to change US dollars to Australian dollars, and at the moment that works out to $394,540.43 Australian to buy one share in his company. Now, there are reasons why his shares are that expensive, and to my understanding, it is the most expensive share in the world. But let's go back to the bank. The bank will give you 2.6%. Warren Buffett, over the past 40, 50 years, has returned every year 20%. To give you an idea what that means, if you use the rule of 72, divide 72 by 20, you get about 3.5. That means about every 3.5 years you've doubled your money. Now, if you invest or had invested $10,000 with him earlier, every 3.5 years you've doubled your money. By now, you would be a multi-millionaire. And I'm talking about multi-millionaire, not a millionaire. So how does he do it? It's got a very, very simple trading rules, which are easy to implement, but not always easy to understand unless you're familiar with how shares and how companies operate. And I'm going to attempt to try and show you how this is done. We'll see how we go. Number one, as a company perform consistently well, he's looking for companies that do well every year, not just some years, but every year. And he looks long term, 5, 10 years minimum. He looks over the past history of the company to decide whether or not every year their sales have grown, their profits have grown, their dividends have grown. And if that's true, then that's the first hurdle. Return on equity is one of the ratios that he uses, and I told you at the start, there's a lot of things with fractions and ratios and percentages to do with shares. Some of them make easy sense, some of them not so easy. Return on equity means for the money that you put in, how much has the company returned for you? So an example, if your company generated $10 million in income, and you had $80 million in equity, then you divide 10 million by 80, you get a return on equity of 0.125, which is a percentage is 12.5%. So it's returning 12.5% for every dollar that people are putting into the company every year. And the equity is simply what the owners owe. Sorry, try that again. What the owners owned. So you subtract from the total assets of the company, how much money they have, how much equipment they have, take away all the money that they owe, and the difference is what you as an owner own. That's your equity. So you want the return on equity to be high. Certainly you want it to be higher than the bank. In this case, 12.5% is significantly higher than the bank. If you go to sites like Yahoo Finance, you can see these figures already up there, and you'll see that there's a whole pile of things you can get for each company. So long as you know what the code is, you can look it up. Okay. Has the company avoided excessive debt? No one likes debt. Because if you take out a loan, whether it's a personal loan for yourself or a loan for the business, you have to pay it back with interest. And that takes away from your profits. So you want a company that doesn't have very much in the way of loans. Typically, if they owe 50% of what they have, that's usually on the high side. So the lower amount of debt, the better. The debt to equity ratio, total liabilities, how much do we owe, divided by how much we own, our share in the business, and you want that number to be as low as possible. No company is in business to lose money, so you want to make a profit. Profit margins are sometimes hard to find easily on the internet, but they are there. But the important thing about profit margins is that they have to be increasing. So every year, the profit that people make in the company gets larger. Domino's in Australia is one of the most successful franchises because every year they make more and more money. And they do it very simply. Every year they increase the price and make the pizza smaller. So they make more money every year. To be public means anyone can buy shares in the company. And these are the companies we're talking about. And we're looking for long-term companies. If you're looking at companies, for example, that have been set up using cryptocurrencies, and I know you've heard the term cryptocurrencies, even though you may not know what the term means. These are all new companies, less than 1 or 2 years old. Warren Buffett wouldn't look at them for a couple of reasons. One, they're too new. In Australia, of all the businesses that start this year, 80% of them will be out of business in 2 years' time. Of the 20% that are left in 2 years' time, 80% of those will be out of business 2 years after that. So over a 4 or 5 year period, a very, very small percentage of companies in Australia survive. If that's true, you don't want to invest in a company that's only going to be around 4 or 5 years. You want a company that's been around for a long time. BHP, going back to BHP, was started at the turn of the 1800s into 1900s. In the late 1800s, they found, or middle to late 1800s, they found silver and lead in Broken Hill, and that's when they started. And they're still going today. So they're well and truly over 120 years old. Warren Buffett doesn't buy shares in commodities, in other words, oil, gold, silver, wheat crops, orange juice, pork bellies, whatever you hear in the movies. He doesn't do that. He buys shares in companies, and companies that he understands what they are doing, and companies that produce something. They make something. So he shies away from companies that produce products that are not distinguishable from their competitors. He wants companies that he says have a wide moat. And one of the classic examples for a company that has a wide moat would have to be that one. Despite how many soft drink companies there are in the world, despite how much soft drink is consumed in the world, Coca-Cola has a product that no one has ever been able to successfully compete against. So he owns shares in Coca-Cola, and when somebody asked him, when's a good time to sell Coca-Cola, he said, I wouldn't know, I've never sold Coca-Cola shares. Because you know yourself, there is no other company that can compete against Coca-Cola when it comes to drinks. And this is the hard one, and it's also the last one. Whether the company is undervalued. And unfortunately, there's no formula for that. It's something that he can work out, and he works out very quickly, and he decides whether the company is cheap to buy. And cheap doesn't mean low in price. It means the price is lower than the value. So the price is what you pay, the value is what you get. So if you pay $100 for a share, if the value of that company is $150 a share, then you're buying it cheap. If the share is selling for $2 and the value of the company is 50 cents, then you're paying too much for that share. So whether it's undervalued is not to do with the price, but whether or not the price reflects what the company is worth. And that basically ends the PowerPoint. It's divided up into two parts. The first part is aimed to try and help you get through the first part of the practice paper, and the second part is designed to try and make some sense out of Warren Buffett's rules. And you'll be asked to do both in the class in the double. First part in the first lesson without any resources. Second part with internet, textbook, personal notes. Any questions? We're all dumbfounded. Look, I know that a lot of what I've said will not make sense to a lot of people. And if you're in my class, you've heard me say that this only starts your education. It doesn't start and end in the classroom. It starts in the classroom but ends when you decide that it ends. If you want to make a comfortable life for yourself, you can't do it with a job. It's as simple as that. A job will get you started and it will help you along the way, but if you really want comfort and you want a comfortable life, it's not going to do it by itself. And some of the richest people I've come across don't earn a lot of money. They work in ordinary jobs, producing ordinary income. It's what you do with that income that will determine the quality of your life. And people who sort of naysay money, I mean, the old saying, money is the root of all evil, it's not. Money is not the root of all evil, it's a love of money that's the root of all evil. That's a proper quote. Money can buy you freedom and can buy you comfort. And in the end, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a life that you struggle from one week to the next? Would you like to have a life where you can live comfortably and do the things you want to do without worrying about whether or not you have enough money for it? That's what investing can do for you. Whether you invest in shares, houses, collectibles, whatever it is. Your education starts here but doesn't end here. Alright? I think that brings us to the end.